Today's headline is Hunters in the Storm. Bangor men made a saddle trip of 32 miles. The subheadline says, Then afoot of Maine's tallest height and down to the Wasataquook. Boston sportsmen bagged several deer and a specimen moose. This article originally came from Bangor, Maine on November 19th. It says, the recent fall of snow in the hunting regions north of here greatly affected the shipment of game through this city during the week. The first snowstorm of the season, which came a week ago yesterday, was a big one. In some sections, from 8 inches to a foot fell, and it's been almost impossible to get around in the woods, especially after big game. The fall snow was very heavy in the region around Mount Khatadin. Two Bangor sportsmen, Harry A. Chapman and Dr. Hayward Stetson, were caught in the big storm in that section, and they arrived home yesterday after one of the hardest trips which they ever participated in, and both men are among the most prominent big game hunters in Maine. Messrs. Chapman and Stetson left the railroad at Stacyville and packed their camping outfit in on horseback a distance of 32 miles, or as far as it was possible to go with a horse. They then began to climb up over Maine's biggest mountain and finally landed on the north side in one of the numerous basins formed by the branches of that eminence and at the headwaters of the Wasataquook River. This country has seldom before been visited by white men. Joe Francis, the most famous Indian guide in Maine, has been telling his friends for several years past about the Klondike which he had in the Mount Khatadin region for trapping and for big game hunting, and Messrs. Chapman and Stetson found signs of the Indians' visit there, but in general the country was wild and secluded. It is believed that Francis is the first man who ever visited this section. Soon after the party arrived, a heavy ice storm came, and it made it impossible to move in the woods without a great disturbance, and this prevented the killing of either moose or caribou. Francis had always claimed that there were 50 moose in this basin, and Mr. Chapman thinks that his statement is not far from being right, as he and Dr. Stetson saw signs of 30 or more animals. The country was fairly alive with deer, and many cow moose were seen. On one of the trails, the two hunters came across the tracks of a moose, which were the biggest that they had ever seen. Dr. Stetson's only way of measuring the track was with his glove, and he found that its length was just the length of the glove from the tip of the second finger to the wristband. Before the party started for home, late last week, the snow had come, and on the way out, the traveling was very hard. The ascent of Mount Khatadin was most difficult, and below they found the snow drifted 4 feet deep. Sumner L. Crosby and Florian L. Morrill of Bangor have returned from a successful deer hunting trip in Norcross. They found the snow 9 inches deep in that section and just right for good tracking. Mr. Crosby is of the opinion that just as soon as it comes off cold, that the sportsman will find the snow, which has begun to settle and have a crust formation, very troublesome. Game Commissioner Carleton and Honorable P.O. Vickery of Augusta have been hunting for a few days at Lambert Lake and have met with good success. W.E. Parsons and C.C. Hall of Dover secured 4 fine deer in the region around Roach River. Frank S. Benson of this city secured a large buck early in the week in Milo. G.F. Sweat of Brewer and W. Maxfield of Bangor have returned from a hunting trip in the region around Namakanta Lake. They each brought home 4 deer. One of Mr. Maxfield's was almost pure white, and Mr. Sweat had one of the fattest bucks brought into Bangor this year. White deer have been unusually common this fall. The sportsmen say that they are an entirely separate breed and are hardly ever found only on the high ridges. J.B.P. Wielden and 2 Boston friends, S.J. Hills and W.M. Hills, arrived here this week with 2 deer each and a large moose. The moose was killed by W.M. Hills and was a fine specimen. J.R. Stewart and T.D. Pike of Boston were here with 3 caribou, 2 deer, and a moose, which they killed in northern Aroostook County, and G.W. Bailey of Dedham, Massachusetts, had 2 deer and a moose. Messrs. Thomas and Patterson, 2 Boston sportsmen, passed through here today on their way home from a most successful hunting trip at the West Branch Ponds in the vicinity of Khatadin Ironworks. They had 4 large bucks and 2 moose, all obtained in a week's trip. They were guided by C.H. Randall, who recently shot a white deer and 2 large bears himself. This story came from the great state of Massachusetts, being reported in the Boston Sunday Globe of November 20th, 1898. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, And remember before you leave, to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.